What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what really moved it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did go down a very painful 11.86%, 28.15 the low, 31.75 the high, and 116.7 million shares being traded. 81 is the average. Even though we did see a little bit higher volume, a lot of that did come from algorithmic trading. So all in all, today was quite interesting, only because there were such high expectations that once the shutdown came to a conclusion that the market was just going to rally. A lot of people didn't really fathom kind of the repercussions of the length of the shutdown and what that meant for a lot of key things such as rate cuts. So ultimately, it was stated today, because of the length of the shutdown, we most likely will not be getting any key October labor data. So that's pretty much writing off November. And so when it comes down to the next Fed meeting, that is going to be on December the 10th. And we already know how stubborn Powell is. He will say, hey, you know what? We don't have any data to make a sound decision. This is why during the last meeting, he kind of said, hey, you know what? I can't really speak on December because don't really have any data. So at the end of the day, because of us potentially not getting any of that key decision-making data that he would use, this did go down slightly. So now there is a 51.9% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut. This is down from 95.5% 1 month ago. So in my opinion, one of the things that really caused the market to freak out so much was the pricing out of potentially a December 10th cut. So that's just my opinion, of course. But in addition to that, more kind of fears associated to the shutdown and the time frame. Because of that, it does show that there potentially could have been roughly 60,000 jobs lost, $92 billion worth, I guess, lost as well, and a hit to their GDP of 1.5%. This isn't good. And so this would be for Q4 numbers, and so that is going to really impact when it's announced in Q1 of 2026. So at the end of the day, this is not necessarily the best. But then again, if you actually did think about it, like before even the shutdown did start, you had analysts really saying, hey, you know what, if the shutdown does kind of go for an extended period, it's going to really impact GDP. So this shouldn't have been that crazy of a surprise to a lot of people, but that's kind of how the market works, right? The market always looks for the next big catalyst and tends to forget a lot of the fear, at least brush it under the rug until it pops up, such as today. So today also, on a side note, was a very slow, this was kind of one of the worst types of pushes lower and kind of pullbacks, is when it's slow, such as even the NASDAQ went down 2.29%, S&P 1.6, Dow 1.65. So it was a slow bleed today, which again was rather unfortunate. One bullish thing that did come out, so not only did we get shutdown news, but you did have Michael Burry closing up his hedge fund. So essentially I see that as two win-win type of scenarios, but again, I think just the level of fear in the market just said, F it, I'm bringing everything down. There was no news associated to SoFi today. SEC filings, there was a couple of things that did come out. A amended 13G, although I think that there was and is some glitch that did happen behind that, because if you open that, it's just a power of attorney. So there's not really much to kind of piece this with SoFi whatsoever. So I feel like something is going to be coming, just it wasn't filed correctly. The only other thing was a 8K, which does talk about SoFi's, or I guess Chris's, Form 4 that did come out, where he did that kind of deal, the prepaid variable forward contract. And I think in general that's good that SoFi did put this out, because I didn't open it, but I read it notification, someone saying that, oh, Chris bought 500,000 shares. So I think just people are not really understanding what general forms are, and there might be just a lot of misinformation. So they put out an 8K just to ensure that there was and is no miscommunication. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. I already did talk about this in my video yesterday, which I do feel is kind of bullish, but I think ultimately it's better for him, because that way it kind of defers the taxes to 2027. When it comes down to short shorts, they did return 116,000 shares, 9.27% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 109.95 million shares overall being shorted. So I always do bring this up whenever SoFi sells off, and there is right now more than 10 million shares available, and it is fairly cheap to short SoFi, not promoting it, but cost to borrow, for instance, through IBKR is 0.41, so very cheap. That is a annual rate on a side note. So if shorts really did feel that this was like the start of a massive recession, which if you pop onto Twitter or social media, that's how people are trying to spin today's sell-off, that we're going to be heading for just kind of age-old times, head back to the Victorian era kind of stuff. But in general, if shorts did feel like that was on the table, they have more than enough ammunition to double, triple, quadruple down. So the fact that they didn't and they did return, I see that as relatively optimistic. Looking at the options, we had 118 million in calls, 38 million in puts, and then 50% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. From a bull standpoint, you still see a lot of optimism for it to recover to that 30 to 31. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 27.50 to 28. Today I did sell some puts, $28 strike price, so I really recommend a lot of individuals that don't care about timing the market and just want a dollar cost average, consider selling puts, because that way you get the premium regardless of how it plays out, and also you get to buy it at the price you ideally want. So tomorrow, if it does close below 28, then I'm buying more. If it somehow recovers and it closes at 28.01, I get to keep the premium. Unfortunately, I don't buy the stock. So definitely take the time to research that on a side note. But aside from that, these are some of the transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. Big one for today, 71.6 million, 13.8, 11.7, 8.6. Regrettably, most of these transactions are sells. So not necessarily the best, but given the price action, I think there might be just a lot of profit taking across the board. Aside from that, these are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So the high one for today, or largest, is 2.85 million. So kind of, for those of you that follow my channel and pay attention to this type of stuff, this is extremely low. So it does kind of match with overall, just shorts not really doing that much, as well as hedge funds. With it closing at 28.39, it is smack dab in the middle between this pivot and this S1. So this very strong support of 29.03 didn't really hold up all too well, regrettably. So when it was going down, this kind of didn't even phase it. So I wouldn't really consider that a key resistance or pivot, but at least in the short term, just generally watch for that. Aside from all of that fun stuff, there was no new analyst ratings whatsoever. So it was just largely piggybacking off the broader market. This is NEO on a side note, so you guys don't care about that, but no new analyst ratings for SoFi either. This right here does show, as what I mentioned at the beginning, most of the volume was linked to algorithmic trading. So a lot of the smaller transactions based on the flow, that is for that. Aside from that, it's SoFi, it was interesting. And you're seeing more of these types of crazy swings. And again, for those of you that watch a lot of my videos, you'd know that a lot of that is algorithmic trading. So artificial. Sometimes things are artificially suppressed to the point where it does break it. Which then you actually do have a very serious problem, because then institutions start to kind of act based on that. But today, in my opinion, was largely unjustified. No different than this sell-off that did happen on October the 10th, this sell-off that did happen on November the 7th. So again, if history does repeat itself, we should have a nice recovery tomorrow, but anything is possible. There's just a lot of fear. A lot of people seem to be on edge. Today, though, it did bounce kind of off of that general 50-day moving average, and that is a very big deal for SoFi. Today, it did break below that 10-day moving average like it was nothing. Looking today, though, you still do see a fair amount of willing buyers, just a lot more willing sellers. And yeah, it definitely filled that up quite crazy. But nonetheless, still no new articles really talking about SoFi or anything. So I'm not really sure. Maybe just institutions are kind of focusing on more of the speculative names out there, like the more higher multiple to tech and AI plays. Maybe that's what people are kind of focusing on. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on SoFi in the comments below. Did you buy? Did you panic sell? And you guys already know my standpoint if you guys sell. I have no hate towards anyone selling, because the whole thing about all this is making money. As long as you make money, that is it. That is the moral of the story. As long as you guys make money, I'm happy. And as long as I make money too, I'm happy too. So definitely let me know your guys' thoughts on all of this. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.